Welcome everyone. The webinar will start soon. Welcome everyone. The webinar will start soon. Welcome everyone. The webinar will start soon. 2 minutes remaining and we will start. Okay, it's fine. Welcome everyone. The webinar will start soon. Welcome everyone. The webinar will start soon. Welcome, everyone. The webinar will start very soon. Hello and welcome to everyone. We're going to start now. Thank you for attending this webinar. My name is Nicholas and I will organize this webinar today. The topic of the webinar today is recycling, sorting instructions, and green claims. How complex is the puzzle in the EU? But first, and for some of you that don't know BIOS yet, since 2008, BIOS offers regulatory and consulting services in various sectors: cosmetics, chemicals, detergents, biocides, candles, certifications, REACH, medical device, toxicology, and in more than 60 countries around the world. BIOS is mainly composed of regulatory experts, specialists, toxicologists, and scientists, chemists, and biologists. Now I'm going to introduce the speakers. We're going to start with Davide Musardo. Davide Musardo joined BIOS 3 years ago, and he is the claims and efficacy team leader. And also Lucie Fignon, that you see on the left. Lucie Fignon is a communication and marketing manager at LECO since January. LECO is a company from France, and their slogan said it all. LECO, the eco organization of responsible companies. We're now going to start. For your information, this webinar will be recorded, and all participants will have access to the record. You can also ask questions during the webinar to the Q&A section above. It's Q&A in English, but it can be Q&A, a Q&F in français, whatever. But it's Q&A above, or Q&R, whatever. So you ask your questions. The two experts, David and Lucille, will answer some questions, and we'll answer these questions at the end of the webinar. Okay, let's start. David, it's your turn.
Okay. Thank you, Nicolas, for this presentation. And here we can start. Welcome everybody. This is the second appointment with Learn with Biorius. Today's topics will be about recycling and sorting instructions and environmental claims with a focus on EU. And we can start. I can go on the summary of topics that we will touch today. We will start with the legal framework and confusing panorama and terms about sorting instructions. What is the current situation in EU? And we will focus with the case in Italy and especially also on France with the help of Lucille from LECO. And finally, we will close with the green or environmental claims. To start with the legal framework, we should consider a different law at the European level, the Waste Framework Directive, for example, that sets the basic concept and definition related to the waste management and with definition that we will see also later about waste recycling. There is also the Packaging Waste Directive, with the aim of harmonizing national measures about the management of packaging and packaging waste, but also with the aim to improve the quality of the environment. There is also the decision 97/129 that sets out the material codes for the packaging, but we should also consider national laws. Indeed, the directives are not directly applicable into the member states, but they have to be implemented. That's why we can understand that there is a disorienting panorama. Indeed, there is an absence of a harmonized approach on sorting instructions across the EU, and we have seen already in the recent years there is a proliferation of different labeling in various countries, as we will see better later. I would like also to add that there is some confusion about the use of some terms when we talk about sorting instructions. This is something that we receive very often as a question from company. What's the meaning of recycling, and if we do actually recycle or if we do separate the products, and are sorting instructions about recyclability? For the understanding of this, I've put here two definitions of separate collection and recycling taken from the Waste Framework Directive. Separate collection means collection where the waste stream is kept separately by type and by nature in order to facilitate a specific treatment. So we talk about plastic collection, for example, paper collection, but also glass collection. Recycling instead, it's all the processes, all the recovery operation by which the material recovered, collected, is reprocessed into other products or material or substances, um, with the aim of conserving the original purpose or maybe adding a new purpose. In this sense, we have two take-home messages. Packaging can be disposed of in separate collection regardless of its recyclability, and recyclability is one of the qualities, one of the environmental qualities that can be shown on packaging, and it is not dependent from the correct disposal of the material of the packaging. Another difficult point, I don't know if you have already heard about this term, EPR. What is EPR? EPR means Extended Producer Responsibility, and it's a set of measures taken by the member state to ensure that producers bear financial and organizational responsibility for the management of the waste during the product life cycle. Packaging and Packaging Waste Directive that we have seen before oblige state to establish these EPR schemes for all packaging by 2024. And we have already for different countries like France and Germany the obligation to register to packaging compliance scheme. What does it mean this in practice? We will have the example of EPR in France, and I will let now Lucille introduce this topic for France with a focus on France to better understand what are the implications for companies in general, but also cosmetic ones, since this is a transversal topic. So, Lucille, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So in France, companies which manufacture or import packaged products on the French market have the obligation to join an eco-organism for the household packaging scheme. They have to pay an eco-contribution to the eco-organism. This eco-contribution is used to pay for the collection, the sorting, and recycling of this packaging. In France, if you don't comply to an eco-organism, the penalties are quite high, per unit or per ton of products of up to 1,500 euro for a natural person and 7,500 euro for a legal entity. And finally, another administrative fine of up to 13,000 euros. So if you don't already know LECO, LECO is a producer responsibility organization, so a PRO, also known as an eco-organism, approved by the French state in charge of managing the EPR for household packaging on behalf of companies that produce or import packaged products on French territory. So our main mission is also to bring together all the actors in the sector, whether recyclers, local authorities, packaging manufacturers, producers, or association, so that there is a synergy between them and that together we can find a solution to increase the recycling rates in France and to reduce the impact on the environment of the household packaging in the general way. So David, I'll give you back the floor.
Thank you, Lucille. So we will move now to talk about the sorting instructions in EU. I've created this map highlighting some countries. In pink, you see those countries where the sorting instructions are mandatory. And we have Italy, France, but also Bulgaria and Malta. For Bulgaria, indeed, we will focus later on Italy and France. Now, just a few information about Bulgaria, where the material code is mandatory together with the Mobius loop and also the symbol of the tidy man. There was an update of the law during this year. And also for Malta, there is the obligation to report the material code. Other countries instead are in yellow, like Poland, Spain, and Portugal, where there is an ongoing discussion about the creation of sorting instruction of a specific labeling. And there is also Slovenia in green, where the information about the material code was mandatory, but it became voluntary. Now we will move, as I said, we will focus on Italy and France in particular. I will start with Italy. For Italy, there is the obligation to have the environmental labeling, and there are two main implications, so 2 points that compose this environmental labeling. One is related to the fact that the producers shall indicate the nature of the packaging material that is reported in the decision 97/129. And the other information that must appear on the label is about the appropriate disposal, the indication for the correct disposal of the packaging. The deadlines for this environmental labeling have changed during the course of the past 2 years. And now there is the suspension of the labeling obligation until the end of 2022, and the possibility of marketing stocks of product already on the market or labeled by the 1st of January 2023. Penalties are in the range of 5,000 to 40,000 euro and are applied to any parties on the market who place on the market the packaging not bearing the environmental label. Indeed, the aim of the law was to create a shared responsibility along the supply chain, so each player in the supply chain is responsible for the creation and the application of the labeling, of this mandatory labeling. I've also reported two examples here, one specific for cosmetics. Indeed, one thing is that the environmental labeling, like DPR, is transversal, so it is applicable to all type of packaging. The first example is close to cosmetic companies. It is a perfume bottle made of glass with a cap in plastic. And the required information are the material code, as you can see here, and the material family, glass and plastic, plus separate collection, since the bottle will go in the glass and cap in plastic. In addition, and it is highly recommended, you should report also the element, like in this case, bottle and cap, and also check your local municipal guidelines. It is highly recommended. The second example could be the one of a bottle cap and label made of plastic. You can see you report the code material for each element, and you can put directly plastic collection, since all the elements can go. This is another way to represent, to report the information. These guidelines have been created. The image I've taken are from the CONAI, the guidelines created from CONAI, the National Packaging Consortium. And it is recommended to follow the CONAI guidelines. Recently, the Ministry of Ecological Transition have also developed some guidance, but they refer to the information already created by CONAI. Now, I've concluded with Italy, and for France, I'll give back the floor to Lucille. One moment, because I have to close the webinar, the PowerPoint, and so you can start.
Yeah, I can't share. You can give me the access to the sharing of my screen.
Let me.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the new starting signage in France. Just only about the key points, because the new graphic chart is very complex and so on. So the main deadline that you have to remember is the 9th March 2023. This is the date from your packaging must be labeled from this date with the new starting signage on the French markets. Except if your packaging has been produced before the 9th September 2022. It means that from this date, all of your packaging that are available on the French market must be labeled with the new starting signage. If they are not, you risk some fines For example, 3,000 euros for a natural person and 15,000 euros for a legal person. About the modification, the main modification that we have on the sorting signage, it's about the green dot, which is now forbidden on French packaging, except if your packaging and your product is also sold in countries where the green dot is mandatory, for example, Spain. But if your product is not sold in countries where the green dot is mandatory, it's very forbidden to put it now on your French packaging. So you can see here that the Trimen logo, like the little man here, is now replacing the green dot and is following by an optional frame, which is le tri plus facile, which means that the sorting is easier now, following by the packaging elements and the bin where they go. You have also an optional sentence here, which means that you have to separate the packaging element before sorting. This is very important, even if this sentence is optional, because if you don't separate correctly the different packaging elements, they can be recycled. So the main point about this new sorting signage is that all packagings goes to the recycle bin, except for glass, which go to the glass bin, whether they're recyclable or not. So every packaging goes now to the recycle bin in France. Where do you have to put the sorting signage? You have to put the sorting signage on all of your packaging elements and at the exterior, at the outside of the packaging, because the sorting signage must be seen very easily by the consumer. So how do you need to compose your sorting signage? So as we have seen just here, you have the packaging elements. You can mention them by putting the text and the picto, so both of them. You can just only put the text of the packaging elements, or you can only have the picto. For the destination, you can be presented in two ways. You have the pictogram only, and you have the text plus the pictogram. For a more precise sorting signage, you can put explanatory sentence. Just like here, you have the packaging element mentioned in the text and also the pictograms. Here you have only the text of the packaging elements. And for those who have a lot of packaging elements, if you have 3 or more of them, you can put a sentence here which says that all the packaging needs to be separated and put in the recycle bin. Because if you have a lot of packaging elements, you don't want to have like a big sorting signage with like 5 packaging elements. For the color code, you have traditional colors, which is a green for the glass packaging, which is the yellow for the non-glass packaging. And here you have the mixed packaging. So we recycle bin and here the glass. You can also, if you have constraints, with the color, with the printer and so on your packaging, to choose the monochrome of your choice. So it can be black, it can be pink, it can be yellow, it can be blue, whatever you want, as long as the contrast is enough, to have good visibility for the consumer. Just one point, the thing that is mandatory and forbidden is the Trimen logo. It can't be white. It can be whatever color you want, but it can be white. And if you don't have enough contrast on your sorting signage and your background, you can put a frame here, which is white, if you don't have enough contrast. If your product is sold in different countries, you have the possibility to adapt your sorting signage. For example, here, when the sorting signage rule is identical, you just have to put the country logo just here. But if the sorting rule is different, you have to mention the one for each countries. For the small packaging, sorry, the two sentences been missing, but the first case is for packaging which is under 10 centimeters square. The signage is not required but must be available in a paperless format if the largest size of or overall surface of the package is less than 10 centimeters square, or if there is no associated documentation like a notice. So if your packaging is very small and is under 10 centimeters square, you have to put the sorting signage on the notice, or if you don't have a notice, in a paperless format. For example, on the website page, on your product page of your website, you need to mention the global sorting signage of your product. The second case is for packaging between 10 and 20 centimeters squared. For those packaging, this is mandatory to put the treatment logo, not the general sorting signage, but only the treatment logo, because I think you don't have enough room for the general sorting signage, but you have to put the treatment logo, and for the rest of the sorting signage, the complete sorting signage, you have to put, as the case one, on the notice, or if you don't have a notice, on your website. So Davide, I give you back the floor.
Thank you, Lucille, for the explanation on France. I will. Okay. So as I was saying, thank you for the explanation on France on the sorting instruction. I see that we have received already some questions. We will address them later at the end of this, at the end of the webinar. To move again, to complete this topic, after the explanation from Leco, I would like to highlight an important difference. While we have seen in France, indeed we have spent more time on this slide, France has imposed a specific format for the sorting instructions, and also you can adapt if you sell abroad, so they are not only specific for France, but also you can adapt them for other countries. Italy instead has left this burden to the companies, and so you can decide freely the format. This is an important difference. As I said, for Italy, it would be better to follow the recommendation anyway if you want to have some guidance. The recommendation and the graphic recommendation from CONAI are very useful. One last point is there is maybe a common solution. Maybe yes, indeed, different organizations are proposing a joint solution to harmonize the sorting instructions across the EU. I've reported here some, Plastics Europe, EDANA, and a common solution would help on one side the consumer, since they would avoid to read complex label, and on the other side, at the trade level, at the commercial level, would be easier instead of creating specific packaging or to adapt the packaging each time for each country. When we will see this solution is not yet, we don't know yet. We will move now on to the last topic of this presentation. What about green claims? I think you already know what are green claims or environmental claims. There is no official guidelines in the EU, even if the European Commission is working to a project to allow to address specifically, to target specifically the green claims. Anyway, green claims can be seen under the lens of the Directive 2005 concerning the unfair business to consumer commercial practices that we will call from now on UCPD. Will abbreviate as UCPD. And the UCPD doesn't provide specific rules, but instead can give the legal basis to understand how to deal with this type of claims and how to not mislead the consumers. The expression environmental claims is interchangeable with green claims, and it's any practice that suggests or creates the impression that a product or a service has a positive impact on the environment or has no impact on the environment, or maybe have less damaging impact on the environment compared to other goods or other service. This can happen at different level. For example, talking about the composition of a product, the manufacturing process, also how it can be disposed of, but also the reduction in energy or reduction in pollution. However, green claims can become soon greenwashing when these claims are not true or cannot be verified, and this can happen at all levels of the relationship between the consumers and the brand, so between the business to consumer relation. And greenwashing can happen at the level of statements or information, but also symbols, logos, graphic, also the brand name, also the interplay with colors, and on pack or on labeling or on website, for example. How is the situation in EU? During the 2020, the European Commission, together with the national consumer authorities, did sweep exercise. That means a coordinated screening of websites where different products were analyzed, including also cosmetic product. And they confirmed the presence of vague, exaggerated, false or deceptive green claims that could be seen as an unfair commercial practice under the UCPD. Of more than 300 of claims examined by the Commission and by the consumer authorities, more than 50% of the cases, there were no sufficient information provided to judge the claim's accuracy. 37% of the case, instead, the brand were using general claims like conscious, eco-friendly, sustainable, which give the impression of a positive aspect from the environmental point of view, but that is unsubstantiated in most of the cases. And almost 60% of the case, the trader instead hasn't provided the proof to substantiate and to support its claim. It's almost 2/3 of the claim examined. So how to substantiate this type of claim? Let's give some basic principles, I would say. We can differentiate 3 levels. At a broad level, we can start considering the UCPD, and green claims must be truthful, not contain false information, must be presented also in a clear way so to not mislead the consumers, especially broad and generic terms that are difficult to substantiate for the scientific complex that is behind should be avoided. You should have also supporting evidence, of course, and you should be able to provide the supporting evidence if challenged by the authorities. If we go at a deeper level and we focus specifically, like I said before, EPR, sorting instructions, also green claims are really transversal topics. But if we want to focus also on cosmetic claims, we should consider the Article 20 of the cosmetic regulation and also the regulation on the common criteria. If we want to go at another level, at the national level, we should consider guidance and positions from associations or from antitrust authority, for example. Here I report a list of green claims that are too broad and generic and that should be avoided. As you can see here, we have gentle on the environment, eco-friendly, ecological, environmental friendly, environmental correct, pollutant-free, green. This should be avoided because they mean everything and nothing at the same moment. They can be used, this type of claims can be used if you have information on the globality of the product. So from the manufacturing process, from the creation of the product to the end of the product, so how to dispose of the product and all the processes that are in between. Usually we recommend to substantiate this type of claim only if you have an LCA study, so a life cycle analysis study that consider a different aspect of the product. Or there are other ways you could make broad and generic environmental claims if you specify, if you add also a qualifier, so you specify an aspect, maybe focusing on the reduction of carbon emissions, for example, if you have the proof to substantiate. From broad to generic claim, I report here instead a specific example of recycled content. And we can have 2 types of claims related to recycled content. with recycled content and with 80% recycled content. In the first case, it will be an unqualified claim for the presence of recycled content, and this claim will be valid if all the product is made of recycled content. Otherwise, it will be misleading. And it can be also valid if there is just an insignificant amount of product which is not made of recycled content. If you have instead a certain portion, it is advisable to qualify the claim by using a percentage. Usually, the recycled content, I wanted to make this example because even if it seems simple, recyclable or recycled content is a very common claim, and it usually appears with the Mobius loop, and Mobius loop can mean carry the meaning of recyclability, but also of the recycled content. Maybe you will see a Mobius loop with recycled material. It could be deceptive unless you have all the information about the product, as said before. If we move to with 80% recycled content, in this case, if you put just the percentage, could be not very clear. So it is advisable to clarify with a statement and reporting, for example, with minimum 80% of recycled material. An important difference, it is also about the words that you choose to qualify the claim. Yeah, here I have highlighted, if you use contains up to, it may be deceptive, and it is preferable and recommended to use instead a minimum amount of recycled content. Why? Because if you use the annual weighted average, you maybe reach an average of 80% and a peak of 85%, for example. So if you are using with 85% of recycled material, it could be deceptive because it's not the average of the recycled content that you are considering during the year. So the last case that I reported here, it describes more clearly the situation. One last point, still talking about France. There was a publication of a decree at the end of April about the consumer information on the environmental qualities and characteristics of the product that generate waste, and terms like biodegradable, environmental friendly, or equivalent expressions are forbidden. This is applicable to the formula, to the packaging, and to the whole product, so at all levels. It is applicable immediately, and stocks of packaging with such mention can be used until the 1st of January 2023, provided that they have been manufactured or imported before the publication date of the decree. That was the 3rd of April 2022. For more information, I invite you, of course, to visit our website or our LinkedIn page. And I thank you for your attention, and thanks Lucille also for participating in this webinar and helping understanding better the topic related to France about EPR and the sorting instructions.
Thank you, Davide and Lucille. We'll now answer some questions that Davide and Lucille have selected. Davide, which entity will evaluate the amount of penalty in France and Italy? How will it be objectively calculated?
Okay, I will cover, of course, the part of Italy for the sorting instructions. For Italy, for the information we have, the controls will be done by the province, and the controls can be done after there will be the how to say, the indication from a consumer, for example, but also from an association. So they could alert the authority, the authority in the province, that the packaging they have seen is not compliant because the information about the correct disposal is missing, for example. The extent, as I said before, the extent of the financial penalty will be between 5,000 to 40,000, and the amount will be chosen on the gravity of the situation. Of course, if there is an isolated case and few packaging will be limited. Instead, if there are more lines of product non-compliant, the penalties could be higher. This is the information we have until now. For France, I let Lucille.
Yes, in France, it could be also the same case in Italy, like association and some federation which alerts like the DGPR. And I think there's going to be like random controls. In fact, like the sorting signage and so on in France, for the deadlines on all EPR schemes are a little bit a mess because each deadline is reported and so on. So we don't really know how it's gonna be controlled. But normally, yes, it's like entities in France, like DGPR, is who is gonna be like doing controls.
Lucille, another question for you. For France, if the packaging was produced before the 9th of September 2022, can it still be used after 9 March 2023?
Yes, it can be used after this date. It's only the packaging which have been produced after the 9th of September, which can be put on the market after the 9th March 2023. But before the 9th of September, it's good after the 9th of March.
Another question for you, Lucille. I'm sorry. For France, are small packages, especially lipsticks, exempted or any other makeup products?
Now, all packagings, whatever the size of them, need to be labeled with the sorting packaging. So if they are very small, as I said before, you have like exception where you have to put the sorting signage on the website or on the weight product or on the notice.
Still for you, Lucille. How do you acquire the logo files?
You have to join an eco-organism, so like l'ECO. And once you are a member of this eco-organism, we provide you those files because you need to get the license, and to get the license, you need to join an eco-organism. So once you join, we provide you those files, and after you construct your own sorting signage for your products.
Davide, can this logo be applied on the packaging in the form of oversticker?
Yes, it is possible for Italy, and it is possible also for France.
Yeah.
So it's possible for both cases. Maybe I would like, since there was a question about small packaging, also for Italy it would be the same. All packaging are the labeling obligation is for all type of packaging, so even small. The thing is that if you have if you have small packaging and you cannot modify, you cannot add the environmental labeling, or you have technological limits to modify the packaging, you could decide, and it is also recommended by the Ministry of Ecological Transition, you could decide to choose digital channel, and so to put, for example, a QR code, or the use of an app, or as a last case also the use of a website to address the environmental labeling, to indicate the consumer should check the environmental labeling online.
Is there, I think it's for Lucille, yes. Is there a sell-through period for product manufactured before September 9, 2022 without the sorting information?
Yes, if your packaging or products have been manufactured before the 9th of September 2022 without the sorting signage, it's okay to sell them after the 9th March 2023.
I think this question is for Davide. Will there be a pushback for harmonization of packaging symbols across EU? If we're not following one of these requirements from the markets in the EU, because space will be a big issue.
Yes, as I said, that this was included during the presentation. For now, each country, as I said, the complex is topic, so there are different laws at EU level and different law at national level, and each country is regulating the labeling um, for, for the country. You could the difference I've highlighted, you could use, for example, the French format, the Info3 format, to adapt to the other countries, and this will be a way to integrate, for example, the information between France and Italy, since Italy has no specific format, while France, yes. So you could merge the two formats. This is a solution. And as I said, there is a project of a common labeling, but we don't know when it will be released and also accepted in terms of law. So we don't have any deadline. In the meantime, the solution I gave you before could be adapted for your case. So to use the information for France and to adapt to other countries.
Lucille, can you please clarify where the trimmer label need to be placed? Only on the outermost packaging or on each component of the package?
It needs to be on each packaging element. For example, if you have like a pot cream with an outside box, it needs to be a label on the box and on the cream pot, on each packaging element, if you want.
Still for you, Lucille, for France, what and who determines small package size? Does this happen during registration or at customs importation, I mean?
This is the producer, which calculate the size of the packaging. So for the exception is like for small packagings, so under 10 centimeters square, you don't have to put the sorting signage, but you have to put it on a notice on a paperless format. And for the packaging between 10 and 20 centimeters square, you have to put the Truman logo and the entire sorting signage in the paperless format. So this is the producer who have to calculate like the size of its packaging to determine if it is a small package or not.
Davide, do you have to translate with minimum 80% of recycled material or not?
Sorry, I reactivate. Okay. Well, it depends on the countries we are talking about. The translation topics, especially for this will be a voluntary data that you have on the label, and the recommendation will be following also the common criteria, since claims must be understandable by the average consumers, to have also claims translated in the language where you will market your product. So if you are marketing in Germany, in Italy, in Spain, you should follow the national languages and adding German, Spanish, and Italian. Unless, for example, there are some countries where English can be understand better. Anyway, it could be problematic if some consumers don't understand the claim. So the advice will be to translate also this type of claim, depending on the market, of course.
Davide, for Bulgaria, what is mandatory to be labeled on the packaging?
Okay. For Bulgaria, as I said, we had the obligation. Okay, now the microphone is on. We have the obligation of reporting the material code with the Mobius loop. There was an update, as I said before, a decree. They changed the direction of the arrows in the Mobius loop, and now it is compliant. So you can use the Mobius loop with the material code inside. Plus, you should also add the tidy man symbol, that is the man that is putting the trash in the bin. That is the information to correct for the correct disposal of the packaging, so to not dispose of the packaging in the environment.
Lucille, for France, is it necessary to use the symbols produced by an eco organization, or can we create pictograms with the graphic designer?
So we provide you the graphic chart and the native files of the sorting signage, but for the packaging elements, like the little pictures of the little drawings, sorry, of the bottles of a cream pot and so on, we provide you a list of them, like lot of pictograms already done. But if your packaging is a little bit original or has a particular form, you can create the pictograms by following some rules that we provide you also. So you can create them with your graphic designer, but you have to follow the graphic chart of the sorting signage, and the design will provide you. You can also create the little pictograms for the packaging elements, but not all the sorting signage.
Lucille, still for you. If stickers with Tramine logo are used, do they need to be stickered on products after 9 March 2023 or after September 2022?
They have to be stickers as soon as possible. But after the 9th March 2023, if you don't label your packaging, you can risk some fines. So it's better if you do it from now, from September 2022. But after the 9th of March, you can risk some fines if you don't stickers your product with the label, with the Truman logo and the sorting signage.
And can the logos be added to hang tags in France?
They can be added to hand tags in France, for example, for clothes, because the hand tags is considered as a packaging. But if you have a packaging element which has to be tagged and labeled with a sorting signage, you can just put its sorting signage on the hand tags. So it's only on the hand tags for the hand tags, but not for another packaging elements.
Lucille, can you clarify for packaging produced before 9 September 2022, is it okay to sell through without the sorting journal and Trimine logo, or do that needs to have the Trimine logo at the minimum?
Now, before September, it's okay to sell without the sorting signage, even without the Truman logo.
And I think that's all for now. Any more questions? Lucille, Davide? I think they answered all the questions that they could answer easily.
There is does the abbreviation of the material, its nature, be applied on all components? I think this is for Italy. So as I say, there is no exemption. If we have a small packaging, it should be applied to all elements. Anyway, if there are limits of space, for example, you could decide to put also the information on the main component and to address, but it depends also on the situation. So it should be seen by case. For example, if you throw the secondary element and you have the primary for a long time, it would be better to separate the information. It depends. It should be seen on a case by case. And I see for Italy, I thought that sorting instruction could be dematerialized for imported product. For example, on the website of the brand, Is it true? As I said before, the exemption would be only if you can demonstrate that you have physical limits of adding the information on the packaging or technological limits due to the process of creating your packaging, for example. But anyway, the materialization is encouraged also in the sense that would avoid to create other packaging in this sense.
Lucille, do you see any more questions that you would like to answer? Or Davide too, both?